The 5 centuries constitute a major landmark in the cultural scenario, in the arena of language, literature, religious beliefs and practices, and the vast and diverse field of visual arts, art and architecture. Let us first do a survey of language and literature. During these 500 years, Sanskrit was definitely in vogue, particularly in the northern part of the subcontinent. But along with that, Prakrit was in great use. Along with that, Pali, the language of canonical Buddhist texts, continued, and we find definitely the earliest traces of Dravidian, mainly Tamil language in the far south. Beginning our survey with the development in Sanskrit literature, Sanskrit was used for writing both creative literature and also theoretical treatises, normative texts, as well as technical literature. Among the major texts in Sanskrit on creative literature, we must mention the 2 great epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The dating of the Ramayana is usually placed between 200 BC and AD 200, falling very much within the scope of our survey. The Mahabharata is dated between 400 BC and AD 400, a longer period of its development, evolution for nearly 800 years. Now, both the 2 epics underwent significant changes in their character, in the composition during the period now under review. The Ramayana, divided in 7 cantos, of course, was the story of a great, nearly superhuman hero, Rama of Ayodhya of the Ikshvaku dynasty. Now, the great hero stories of Rama, his father, his brothers, and also other heroic deeds of the Kshatriya families figure mostly in the cantos from number 2 to number 6. With that, were gradually incorporated the first canto, Balakanda, and the last canto, the Uttarakanda. In these 2 kandas, Rama appears as an incarnation of the great god Vishnu. He is born as Vishnu and after his life merges into Vishnu. So he is an avatar of Vishnu, as the Ramayana depicts, while perhaps the original story was that of a great hero who gradually transforms into an incarnation of Vishnu. So the text no longer remains purely a hero story, but assumes a character of a devotional text. Similarly, the Mahabharata, indeed a story once again of very great heroes, largely of the Kshatriya ruling houses, now assumes a character of also a didactic text, as into this text are incorporated sections like the Shanti Parvan, the Anushasana Parvan, which deals with normative instructions put in the mouth of Bhishma. Once again, the text, originally story of great heroes, becomes almost a Shastra. Now, these are the significant changes that were taking place during this period. Apart from the major epics, Sanskrit was indeed the vehicle for the creation of 2 very important normative texts, the 2 earliest Dharma Shastras of Manu and Yajnavalkya. If Sanskrit was the major vehicle for the Dharmashastra type of literature, one major area was writing the technical treatise on grammar. The Mahabhashya Patanjali belongs to this period. Patanjali was a contemporary of Pushyamitra Sunga. These developments closely correspond to the composition of two other very important technical treatises belonging to the realm of medicine, medical sciences. I am referring to the two great medical treatises belonging to Charaka and Susruta. Charaka's Samhita mainly deals with therapeutic measures for the amelioration of diseases, while Susruta suggests different types of surgeries for the treatment of various diseases. This is the wide range of texts written in Sanskrit. What is very significant that it is during this period that Sanskrit first appeared as a language to compose in inscription eulogies of rulers. In 150 AD, the famous Junagadh Prashasti of Rudradaman, a Shaka ruler, came out and composed in high-flown court poetical Sanskrit. Sheldon Pollock very rightly has suggested that this is a turning point in the history of Sanskrit literature. Sanskrit now gets its place in the cultural life, not merely as a language of performance of religious rites, beliefs, practices, performance of yajnas, not merely a language for rituals and philosophical texts, but also now a language of the court. Sanskrit comes very close to political circles. The spread of Sanskrit does not at all mean that other languages gradually disappeared. In fact, this is the period when Prakrit in different regional forms were very much in vogue, as inscriptions from all over the subcontinent are largely written in Prakrit language. And Prakrit also becomes the vehicle of the creative literature. A classic example is the Gatha Saptashati, the 700 verses, mainly on amorous themes, love. And this text, possibly belonging to early centuries of the Christian era, is attributed to Hala, who was from the Deccan. The language Pali very much continued in the form of the large number of Jataka stories, the stories of the former birth of the Buddha, which are composed in Pali language. Now, if we have Pali, Prakrit and Sanskrit, there of course was the possibility of their interactions, intermingling, and this exactly happened in the emergence of a peculiar language which is called hybrid Buddhist Sanskrit. Though Buddhist texts were largely written in Pali, Sanskrit began to be incorporated in the Sanskrit texts of this period, and therefore emerged a hybrid language, combination between Sanskrit and Pali. A classic case in this context would be the Mahavastu Avadana, the Buddhist text. The life of the Buddha itself becomes a subject of literary creations in the Buddhist circle, like the great work of Ashwaghosha Buddhacharita. We have also the Lalita Vistara, in which the first biography of the master is seen. Similarly, there are Kavyas, Saundaranandya, once again attributed to Ashwaghosha. Along with these languages, which are mainly seen from North Indian point of view and also in the Deccan, we find for the first time the advent of Tamil language and literature in the form of the Sangam texts, which are datable generally between 200 BC and AD 300. Now, the Sangam texts are essentially poems celebrating warlike activities of rulers, their heroism, and at the same time, these are poems on love. Usually, these are told, composed orally by birds who speak in eulogistic terms of the exploits, both in love and in war, of the rulers who, being happy, usually give them lavish offers. The poets are patronized by the great rulers of the Cholas, Cheras, and the Pandyas. Interestingly, in another form, the character of Tamil language of this period is known. The use of Tamil in inscription written in Brahmi script. That's why it is called Tamil Brahmi inscription. This is a completely new emerging field of studies. It's being revealed to us thanks to the painstaking researches of Iravatham Mahadevan. From this very quick, brief survey of language and literature, we can now pass on to the study of religion. Religious beliefs, practices. Once again, immediately one is struck by the enormous diversity of religious beliefs, practices, and ideas. In terms of Vedic ideology, this period definitely witnessed the performance of a number of Vedic sacrifices, including those Vedic sacrifices which were particularly meant for rulers like Vajapaya, Ashwamedha, Rajasuya. We have already talked about this in our survey of political history. But it shows how in the Maurya period we rarely encountered the performance of Vedic sacrifices, and then once again in the post-Maurya period they reappeared in the scene. Apart from the performance of Vedic sacrifices, Brahmanical religion had two very major divinities, Vishnu and Shiva. Now, interestingly, Vishnu and Shiva in the Vedic texts were both relatively minor deities. Vishnu was known as a minor deity. Shiva, under the name Rudra, was also a minor deity. But now they have emerged as two very major Brahmanical divinities with wide following. Now, the understanding of Vishnu takes the form of Bhagavat, and that's why the worshippers of Vishnu are called Bhagavatas in our sources of the period. We find the first image of Vishnu not in the form of a sculpture or a statue, but it appears in the coins of a Greek ruler, Agathocles, and this coin is found from the excavations at Ai-Khanum, a typical Greek city in Afghanistan. It's a huge excavated area, and Agathocles belongs to about 2nd century BC. In two coins of King Agathocles figure not only Vishnu, the four-armed image of Vishnu, but also his elder brother Balarama Sankarshana, who carries the typical diagnostic trait of a plough. That's why Balarama is called the carrier of a plough, Haladhara. Now, these are the two earliest iconic representation of Vishnu as Bhagavat and also his elder brother Balarama. Interestingly, by about 1st century BC, in central India, at a place called Ghoshundi, a local ruler, Sarvatrata, a performer of Vedic sacrifices, also established a shrine for the worship of Narayana, another form of Vishnu, and called it as Narayana Vataka, where there was arrangement for puja and there was an enclosed area, Shila Prakara, in which once again the worship of Sankarsana Balarama, the elder brother of Krishna Vishnu, and also Krishna Vishnu himself, Vasudeva, these two were propitiated. Now interestingly here, there is one form of Vishnu we have already indicated as Bhagavat. We have also found that Vishnu was known as Narayana. Then there is another aspect of Vishnu as Krishna Vishnu, the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. That's why he is called Vasudeva. So three aspects merged, and therefore there is in this combined form the worship of Krishna, Vishnu, Vasudeva, Narayana. All four types emerged more or less at the same time or one after the other. Now interestingly, Krishna Vishnu, particularly Vasudeva, is associated with the Yadava clan, more specifically with the Vrishni group within the Yadava clan. An inscription from Mathura remembers the 5 great heroes of the Vrishni group. They are called the Pancha Vrishni Veera. Who are they? It begins with Sankarsana Balarama, then Vasudeva, then 2 sons of Vasudeva Krishna, these Pradyumna and Shamba, and then Shamba's son Aniruddha. So here is the worship of 5 great Vrishni heroes, and then one of them becomes Vasudeva Krishna, who is identified Narayana, who becomes the Bhagavata. And therefore the worshippers are known as Bhagavata. He is a great god in emergence and with remarkable popularity, widespread popularity. Perhaps one of the very best examples of the popularity of the worship of Krishna, Vishnu, Vasudeva comes from Vidisha region. Here came in the 2nd century BC a Greek ambassador, envoy named Heliodorus, who represented his master Antiochidus of Taxila, and he came to the court of the Vidisha ruler Kashiputra Bhagabhadra. There he established, caused to be erected a pillar with a Garuda symbol, Garuda being the vehicle or mount or Vahana of Vishnu Vasudeva. And he calls himself a Bhagavata, worshipper of Vishnu, and he calls Vasudeva as Devadeva, the god of gods, in whose honor he caused to be erected a Garuda pillar. If Vaishnavism in the form of the Krishna, Vishnu, Vasudeva, Bhagavata worship was taking place, similarly the worship of Shiva was also looming large in the cultural horizon. One of the earliest visual depiction of the image of Shiva comes from a sculpture in Western India from around Ujjaini, datable to about 2nd century BC. One of the earliest images of the lingam form, the phallic form of Shiva, in which he is widely propitiated, comes from Gudimallam in Andhra Pradesh area, once again datable around 1st century BC. This indicates how Shaivism was not merely seen in North India, but gradually penetrating into the peninsular part of India. In a very large number of Kushana coins, Shiva appears on the reverse side as a very prominent deity, either in his human form or in the form of his mount, Nandi, the bull. We also find images of Surya, the sun god, usually depicted as riding on a chariot drawn by horses. Sometimes he is flanked by 2 attendant female divinities, indicating the goddess of dawn, Usha and Pratyusha. The worship of Surya in India could have been partly popularized because of the cultural contacts with Iranian borderlands, because in Iran the sun god is known as Mihr. Interestingly, Mihr is repeatedly shown in the coins of the Kushana rulers. He is also figuring in Kushana inscriptions as a major deity. Another male deity who was quite popular is Kartikeya, variously known as Skanda, Skanda Kumara, Visakha or Visago in the Ravatak inscription particularly. Sometimes he is shown in the form of a warrior. He is also shown holding a cock in his hand, a rooster, instead of the usual mount that is the peacock. He is usually considered in Puranic stories as the commander-in-chief, the principal warrior for the Devas. That's why he's called Devasenapati. Interestingly, his wife in Puranic legend is known as Devasena. So he is simultaneously the Senapati of the gods, Deva Senapati, and also he is the Pati or the husband of Devasena, his wife. There is a punning in this particular epithet. If the popularity of the worship of Skanda Kumara, Kartikeya is seen in North India and also in the Kushana realm, he has a strong association with the god Murugan, popular in the Tamilakam area and repeatedly figuring in the Sangam literature. Murugan is also a god of war, and like Kartikeya, he also holds a cock in his hand. We have so far talked largely about several Brahmanical male gods. There was a distinct popularity, a following of female goddesses, particularly the great Devi, represented in a large number of terracotta figurines. These terracotta figurines are often called as mother goddess figurines because they are seen as great mothers, and the fertility aspect of motherhood is often emphasized in these terracotta figurines. The terracotta figurines also depict some of the Yakshinis. A case in point could have been the very famous Yakshini found from Chandraketugarh in the Bengal Delta area, but now kept in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. That's why it's called Oxford Yakshini image. The worship of a great mother in the form of a great goddess took the form sometimes of a divinity, of a female deity called Hariti. Hariti figures in a number of Kushana period sculptures as simultaneously a devourer of children and also as a protector of children. So she is simultaneously a malevolent and a benevolent deity, devourer and protector of children simultaneously. But perhaps the greatest of such goddess was the Devi riding on a lion and killing the buffalo demon. We are referring to the cult of Mahishamardini or Mahishasuramardini. She figures first time in a sculpture as really throttling a lion, the visual representation of the literal expression, the Mahishasuramardini. It comes from the area of Tonk in Rajasthan, datable in a terracotta plaque, datable to about 1st century BC. In other cases, the great goddess Mahishasuramardini is seen sometimes piercing the buffalo demon with a lance-like weapon. She either kills the demon in the full form of a buffalo or partly human, partly buffalo shaped. it's interesting that in West Asia there was a similar deity, a female deity named Nona, who also rides a lion and kills demons. The goddess on lion, known as Nona, figures very regularly in Kushano coins and also is worshipped and paid reverence to in the Ravatak inscription. It is possible that in the concept of Durga Mahishasuramardini, as B.N. Mukherjee indicates, we have an amalgam of the concept of Nona, particularly during the Kushano period. So we have seen how Brahmanical religions have been gradually spreading and having a large following, particularly in terms of Vaishnavism, Shaivism, and the worship of the cult of the great goddess.